Hey, it's me, NT, and welcome to my walkthrough of the Old Hearts bosses in Act 3 of Hollow Knight, Silksong. Old Hearts is the penultimate quest for Silksong, so the good news is we're on the downhill side of the mountain. The bad news is I had the worst time getting 2 of these hearts, so buckle in for a rough ride. In this video, I'll show you where each boss is, how to prepare for it, and break down the techniques needed to defeat them. Here's the location of Clover Dancers and the bench you'll start from. For this fight, I suggest the Wanderer's Crest and the Cog Flies. For blue tools, I recommend the Fractured Mask, the Pallet Pouch, and the Multi-Binder. And for yellow tools, I suggest the Compass, the Weighted Belt, the Ascendance Grip, and the Magnetite Dice. If you die to this boss, and you probably will, you're in for an extremely long run back. You can cut a good bit out by using Silksong in the proper places, but you'll still have to wait for Hornet to wake up, then play Elegy of the Deep with this animation, then watch her wake up all over again before you can even start the run back. Thankfully, since any area that requires you to play the Elegy of the Deep to enter it counts as a dream, there's some really good news. All tool usage is free. Whether you use a consumable like Flea Brew, or use shards to reload with the Architect's Crust, everything is refunded when you wake up. Feel free to go wild on the tool use if you want to. Before the fight even begins, toss out a poison cogfly to get some hits in during the boss's intro. Keep tossing out one cogfly at a time during phase 1. The Clover Dancers are the origins of the Cogwork Dancers, so expect a similar fight with some key differences. First, the Clover Dancers start in the equivalent of Phase 2 for the Cogwork Dancers. Second, their aiming line telegraphs are shortened so their attacks come out quicker, so expect your response times to be severely tested. Third, several of their attacks are upgraded. And lastly, you can only damage the Green Prince because the Memory Dancer is immaterial. Just like last time, a dancer has 2 basic attacks, which are thrust attacks and area attacks, and you primarily want to stay on the ground so you're ready to dodge them. Up and diagonal up are thrust attacks, as are left and right. However, left and right come out fast. When you see a left or right attack at a ground level, immediately jump and pogo downwards to get either a parry or a hit on the dancer. Down and diagonal down are both area attacks, where the dancer will attack left and right at the same time. These attacks have a larger hitbox than you expect, so dash away from their landing spot to avoid damage. This time, when the dancers come together in the center of the screen, instead of an AoE attack, they'll send out 2 tornadoes that rotate around them. There's no slipping past this attack. Instead, you'll have to slot yourself into one of the empty hemispheres between the tornadoes and follow it up, over, and around the princes. The easiest way to get over the princes is either by double jumping or leaping off the wall, then claw lining above them. The Clover Dancer's screen-filling attack has a few less lines than previously, but now it attacks twice. Slot yourself into an empty space, and as soon as the second set of lines draw in, move to the next clear spot, which will probably be in the air, so float there until the attack is over. Phase 2 begins when the Clover Dancers shout again. Start tossing out 3 cogflies at a time now to try to speed your victory. Like Phase 3 of Cogwork Dancers, each dancer now attacks separately, one after the other. This essentially means the moves in their dance are doubled, and so are the amount of attacks. But the good news is that there are no new attacks to deal with in this phase. If you have the Ascendance Grip on, an easy way to dodge the line attacks is to cling to the wall until it's over. I'm not saying the wall is always a safe space, so look carefully before dodging there, but it worked great this time. Thankfully, since the dancers are extremely aggressive, they don't have a bunch of health. If you find yourself struggling to finish phase 2, save your cogflies until this phase, and pour on the poison until they fall. Here's the location of Crust King Khann, and the bench you'll start from. For this fight, I suggest the Architect's Crest with the threefold pin, Plasmium File, and Cogflies. For blue tools, I use the Fractured Mask, the Druid's Eyes, and the Weave Light. For yellow tools, I recommend the Weighted Belt, Ascendant's Grip, and Magnetite Dice. Here's the thing. The hardest part about beating Crust King Khann is getting to him. You have to make it through 4 arenas before you can challenge the boss. And the first 3 are some of the hardest and most irritating parts of Silksong. This is a boss guide, so I'm not going in depth through these arenas, but I do have some tips and one secret that's an immense help for surviving the arenas. Make sure to start this by having full shards and full silk. First, for the secret. As soon as you enter the dream, and remember, dreams have free tool use, inject yourself 6 times with Plasmium. Use the Architect's Crest to reload, and inject yourself 3 more times. This will force you into the Plasmium overdose state. You can't heal in this state, but your health will constantly regenerate at a pretty good clip. We're going to abuse this regeneration by taking every opportunity to stay out of the enemy's reach and heal up. Now, these arenas have become a war of attrition, and you've got the winning strategy. That does mean you're going to be progressing slowly. It took me about 15 minutes to beat the first 3 arenas, but the important thing is to carefully progress without dying. But what to do with all the silk you're building up, since you don't have silk skills and bind is useless? Use it to clawline whenever you feel like it, and to reload tools often. Be very free with those threefold pins, and pretty free with the cogflies. They're expensive. Then use the Architect's Crest to reload when you're out. If you need an emergency heal, you can use the Plasmium Vial, but I find it leaves you pretty vulnerable during combat, so save it for between waves. Speaking of the Architect's Crest, don't rely on his pogo because of the delay and short range, but do use a charge attack as often as you can, since it does a massive amount of damage and can kill many enemies in one hit, especially at short range. If you need to heal, you can either wait until the last enemy in a wave and then keep dodging that enemy until your health regenerates, or hang out on the top of the wall if you're only fighting the basic soldier. Speaking of hanging out on the wall, that's also a good place to stay and wait to slap back the projectiles of the enemy that tosses the spinning blade. One last tip. You need to go through these arenas calm and businesslike, with as little stress as possible. I noticed the music was really ramping up my energy, so I turned it off, and you might want to do the same. Once you've made it through the first 3 arenas, you can open a permanent shortcut to the bottom of the tower, and I would recommend doing so immediately. Just climb to the top of this room and drop the stalactite through the floors below. I considered leaving the dream to reset my tools and shards, but I decided just to press on. You'll have 1 more arena to cut through, but it's the easiest of the previous 3, and there are no big guys you have to fight. Silk soar up to the top of the tower, and you'll end up in Crust King Khann's boss room. Khann's primary attack is summoning 1 to 2 pillars of spiked coral. The attack starts by emitting a column of dust where the pillar will emerge, and you have plenty of time to get out of the way. And the pillar doesn't last very long, so these are easy attacks to dodge. Just keep striking Khann with normal attacks, and focus on dodging if you need to regenerate your health. Khann also has an attack where he shouts and fills the room with short pillars of coral, but again, the dust clouds clearly show where they'll be, and the attack doesn't last very long. You're more likely to take contact damage from Khann's jumps than actually being hit by his attacks. Phase 2 starts when Khann roars, and he'll break out his new attack, a series of stalactites that emerge from the ceiling and fire downward. Again, you'll have plenty of time to notice where they are and fit yourself into the generous safe spaces. Khann's attacks will speed up and start to stack now, so you'll have to pay a bit more attention. Also know that his attack with the 2 diagonal floor pillars will also be followed up with 2 diagonal ceiling pillars that extend the range of the attack, so keep an eye out for that. Just keep stacking the damage, and soon you'll be wondering why Crust King Khann was so easy compared to his arenas. Here's the location of Skarrsinger Karmelita and the bench you'll start from. For this, I recommend the fully evolved Hunter's Crest, the Cogwork Wheel, and the Tax. For blue tools, I recommend the Fractured Mask, the Pallet Pouch, and the Multibinder. And for yellow tools, I suggest the Compass, Ascendant's Grip, and Magnetite Dice. There's only a short run to Skarrsinger Karmelita, including the Dream Entrance animations, remember, free tool use, but like Crust King Khann, she has an unskippable arena before her. And although it's only one staggered wave, and a wave of last claws, the enemies are difficult enough they beat me a few times, and many times drain me of too much health to really challenge Karmelita. My best advice is to make good use of your charge attacks, pogo off the ground-based enemies, and wait for the last claws to whiff before attacking. It took me 2.5 hours to beat Skarrsinger Karmelita, partially because I was experimenting with different strategies, so make sure you're locked in during this fight, and don't expect to win until you've memorized all her moves. And since we're not pulling any punches, make sure to begin the fight by tossing out poison tacks on the left and right side of the arena, but hold the rest of them for phase 2. This is another boss where you really have to pay attention to your positioning. Ideal position is about half a screen away, and on the ground so you don't get caught in her jump attack. Stay out of the air unless you're moving in for an attack, preferably a horizontal attack. This whole fight is a back and forth, where she attacks and you dodge, then you counterattack. And since Karmelita blocks so aggressively, your only good time to strike is during her attack animations and the delays after them. She has 2 basic strike attacks, and she can combo from one attack into the other. The first is a spinning strike forward, where she lifts one arm above her head and then spins forward. This comes out fast and covers a fair distance, and is essentially the attack that defines ideal distance, which should be just out of range. This stance telegraphs a 2 to 3 hit combo that can immediately transition into the spinning attack to give her a little more range. When Karmelita jumps into the air, you can expect one of 2 attacks. Her most annoying attack is a spinning buzzsaw that arcs towards you before hitting the ground and drawing up a line of spikes that travel forward and persist for a moment. This is a great opportunity to pogo off of her, but don't misjudge the distance or you'll land in the spikes. Less annoying, but with more range, after Karmelita jumps into the air, she'll throw 2 blades that arc down and travel along the ground. Jump over or parry them. She'll also throw the same 2 blades straight forward in something of a V. You should parry these blades every time instead of dodging, because it's easy to jump into the top blade while trying to dodge the bottom blade. That's a great example of a blade parry, and I would say you should always plan on smacking her blades away instead of avoiding them. One reason I chose the fully evolved Hunter's Crest is because the diagonal pogo helps in avoiding attacks and in refining your positioning. By the time you stagger Karmelita, it'll probably be time for phase 2, and during her yell is a good time to get some more hits in. In phase 2, Karmelita gets a little faster, and during her jumping projectile attack, she can now choose to toss out an additional set of blades. She also gets a new attack, where Karmelita leaps off a wall and dashes across the arena, leaving spikes behind. Similar to her jumping buzzsaw attack, these spikes persist for a while, and it's easy to misjudge a pogo, so normally you just want to float in the air until they disappear. Don't forget to start throwing out your attacks in this phase. From now until the end of the fight, we want to keep 2 groups of attacks on the floor. When Karmelita yells again, phase 3 starts. She gets even faster in this phase, and worse, she starts firing off attacks with much less delay between the attacks. She can very quickly overwhelm you, so instead of attacking, focus on dodging and tossing out your tools. The cogwork wheel is very effective here, especially if you throw it at her so it hits a few times, then bounces off the wall and gets her again. Hopefully by the time you've used all your tools, you will have won. Notice I still have a few attacks left, so I should have started using them earlier in the fight. Here's the location of Shrine Guardian Seth and the bench you'll start from. For this fight, I suggest the Wanderer's Crest and the Throwing Ring. For blue tools, I recommend the Fractured Mask, the Weave Light, and the Multibinder. And for yellow tools, I recommend the Compass, Weighted Belt, Ascendan's Grip, and Magnetite Dice. For a boss that keeps yelling "Friendo" at you, Seth is decidedly unfriendly. Like Karmelita, he likes to block, and like Chakra, he teleports around. But since he doesn't specialize in either, he teleports and blocks much less than his counterparts. Honestly, I found him pretty predictable, and it only took me about 15 minutes to beat him. Unless you're healing or dodging a ground-based attack, you want to stay on the ground while fighting Seth. He has a lot of air attacks, and will randomly teleport into the air, making it easy to run into him if you're jumping around. Likewise, you don't want to dash much to keep from crashing into him if he appears in front of you. This is a slower paced fight, so don't rush. If Seth sticks his shield out above him or in front of him, he'll block any attacks that hit the shield. In this case, he's winding up for his upward attack. This starts with one quick slash forward and then a diagonal back upwards attack. Seth's most basic attack is 2 quick swipes, which he can do immediately after a teleport or from neutral stance. He'll jump backwards a little bit before the strikes, and this is an excellent time for a pogo. Like Captain America, Seth likes to toss his shield at you, but unlike Steve Rogers, Seth will chase down his shield to catch it, repositioning himself. There are 2 variants to this attack. A ground-based version that is clearly telegraphed and easy to jump over, but is near impossible to pogo off of. And an air version where the shield travels downward in a V before Seth catches it and falls back to the ground. Run to the sides or jump straight up in the middle of the V to dodge the shield, and punish him when he hits the ground. When Seth hangs in the air like this for a second, he's about to do a 3-attack chain that starts with a diagonal down dive in the direction he's facing. This dive ends with a medium-sized area of effect attack, so run away to get out of his way, and then leap into the air to dodge the last part of the chain, a 2-strike lunge attack that, per usual, covers a long distance. But because this is a purely horizontal attack, it's a great opportunity for a pogo. When the music stops, phase 2 is about to begin. Start using your throwing rings, and watch out for Seth's new attack, which is really just his 3-attack dive chain, but he can choose to add 2 more dives. These extra dives can be dodged just by running left or right, ideally in the direction of Seth, right under him, and he always ends with the easy to pogo lunge attack, which I found so predictable I was happy whenever he used it. Make sure to jump as high as you can before healing to reduce the chance of Seth knocking you out of it. It might take a bit, but pretty soon Seth will lose his duel. Here's the location of Nyleth and the bench you'll start from. For this fight, I use the Architect's Crust with throwing rings, conch cutter, and cog flies, but I wish I had replaced the cog flies with the threefold pin, since Nyleth was often out of range of the cog flies. For blue tools, I recommend the Fractured Mask, the Pallet Pouch, and the Weave Light. And for yellow tools, I suggest the Weighted Belt, Ascendus Grip, and Magnetite Dice. Compared to all the other old Hearts bosses, Nyleth is surprisingly easy, especially if you do what I did and pummel her with projectiles, which are free since we're in a dream. As soon as the fight starts, begin firing conch cutters at her, and don't let up until the end of the phase. When Nyleth sticks out her gross mouth parts, she's about to do a spread of bullet spray. These bullets can have their trajectories nudged by attacks, but cannot be deflected, and they do a tiny explosion when they hit the wall or the ground. But they have a small hitbox, so stay out of their way and keep firing conch cutters. This telegraph lets you know that Nyleth is about to leap straight across to the other wall. Treat this like a charge attack, so both avoid it and try to get a pogo off it. You only have a short time to dodge this attack, so when you see the circle of pollen on the screen, instead of running away, you should immediately claw line away to the other wall and cling there until the pollen explodes. You can attack these spike balls to yeet them back into Nyleth's face, which I found easy to do with the Hunter's Crest, but since we're using the Architect's Crest and it has a slight delay before the attack, just focus on dodging them instead. Phase 2 starts when Nyleth starts shaking and the ground drops out from beneath you. From now on, you'll do all your fighting from the wall opposite Nyleth, which is why I suggest a projectile build for this boss. Just keep tossing your rings at her, and jump to the opposite wall when she charges across so you don't take damage from the thorns she spreads on the wall she occupies. Once I ran out of projectiles, I had to start dashing over to get in an attack and let my cog flies hit her. Clawline is really your friend here, and if you have the Weave Light and the 3 Silk Hearts, you should have plenty of silk to use it freely. If I had built up more silk before Phase 2 started, I could have used the Architect's Reload skill, but I'd already done enough damage with my tools that I didn't have to chase her around the boss room for too long. I hope this video helped you out, or at least gave you an interesting look at some of the bosses. In my opinion, the hardest part of the game is over. The only thing left is the last boss and mopping up some optional fights. If you'd like to know when those videos will release, would you please subscribe and turn notifications on? And if you found this video super helpful and you want to support me, there's a Ko-Fi link in the description. Anyway, that's it for me this evening. I hope you're still enjoying Silksong, and bye!